Welcome to the presentation of investigating retention and passive haptic learning of piano songs. My name is Eric Pescara and my co-authors are Ruben Donchev and Michael Beige. Passive haptic learning is the phenomenon in which users can learn motor skills through repeated haptic stimulation applied to the body, even though little to no attention is dedicated to learning. Thus, a person is able to learn a motor skill while doing something else like answering emails or playing a game. In the past, researchers had great success teaching piano note sequences, drums, and braille through passive haptic learning. The research question that we pose is, how does the retention of passively learned material compare to actively learned material? This is important because a big part of learning is the retention of learned material. For the purpose of this experiment, we used the hardware that you can see on the right, an electronic keyboard and glove with motors placed above the proximal phalanges. Our experiment design was based on mobile music touch, mobile tactile stimulation for passive learning, with modifications to be able to retest retention. The experiment was conducted in 2 separate sessions, 3 days apart. In session 1, participants learned the note sequence actively and passively, and 3 days later in session 2, we tested the retention. For the purpose of the study, we created 2 note sequences, each consisting of 10 notes. Both note sequences used the same 5 keys of the piano and were in the same octave. The note sequences had a 1-to-1 finger-to-key mapping. The participants learned the note sequences passively and actively. In the active learning condition, we first played the note sequence to the participants, which then had 3 attempts to repeat the note sequence. If they achieved an accuracy of 90% or above, we considered this note sequence to be learned. 90% was chosen because we did not want the participants to overlearn. If the participants were unable to play the sequence with 90% accuracy at least 2 out of 3 attempts, then he or she entered into another learning cycle. In the passive learning condition, the subjects first went into a 20-minute passive rehearsal phase. After that, we played a note sequence for them. This was done in order to illustrate what was passively learned. Afterwards, the person had 3 attempts to repeat the note sequence. If they achieved an accuracy of 90% or above, we considered the song to be learned again. If the subject was unable to play the sequence with 90% accuracy at least 2 out of 3 attempts, then he or she entered into another learning cycle, like with the active learning condition. Because we wanted to measure the participants' performance, we used dynamic time warping to calculate the number of mistakes on an attempt. The 20-minute passive rehearsal phase consisted of the subjects playing the game Jeweled for 20 minutes while listening to the note sequence and receiving passive haptic stimulation. The game Jeweled is a time-matching puzzle game. When we played the note sequence to the subjects, we did not only play the audio recording, but also LEDs on the strip were highlighted on the keys required to be pressed. 3 days later, we conducted a second session in which the participants were tested on their retention. There were 2 sets of tests. The first set dealt with unaided recall. Participants recalled the note sequences in the order that they learned them. In the second set of tests, we gave the participants a little cue. We played each note sequence for the participant once and measured their recall after the cue. The entire data set of participants consisted of 20 people. 2 individual subgroups could be defined as novices, people who have not played piano but perhaps had some musical experience. Finding people without musical experience proved difficult, due to school often introducing children to musical instruments, and previous piano students, who had experience from 1 to 10 years of playing piano. Consistent with previous research, passive learning took significantly fewer attempts. The only exceptions is the previous piano students, whose difference is not significant. Unaided recall showed no significant difference between actively and passively learned material. However, after playing the note sequence for the subjects once, passively learned material was recalled significantly better. We could observe a significant difference in recall errors when looking at all participants and when looking at novices. However, no significant difference in recall errors could be found for previous piano students. In conclusion, unaided recall had no difference between active and passive learning. On the other hand, aided recall for passively learned material was overall better. On average, 10% or 1 note better than the actively learned material. This suggests that passive haptic learning could be mostly beneficial for inexperienced people. In future work, we would like to increase the time between the sessions. We would focus more on more granular subgroups for experience, and we would like to delve into passive learning as a reinforcement technique. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice day.